So that one is just say somebody that knows intimately their audience. And that means sometimes you're knowing somebody else, which is what the charity don't do. So we try to go to everyone and the dog and just say, my cause is good for you. Instead of just saying, well, who is my target audience, right? So for instance, for UNICEF, it's clearly very much, it's parents, it's an identity that counts because we're talking about children, right? So, and why do I need to convince necessarily, right, the Gen Z and Gen U?
Hello, I'm Justin Wheeler, and welcome to this episode of Nonstop Nonprofit. Today, we're catching up with Francesco Ambrogetti, Principal Advisor of Innovative and Alternative Finance for Children at UNICEF. A champion of innovation in funding and paradigm-shifting change, Francesco has pioneered new funding architectures like bank bonds to support fundraising, parametric insurance to cover children, the first outcome finance structure for polio, and socially conscious ETFs. The last time we talked to Francesco, we barely scratched the surface of the type of alternative funding that makes enormous change possible fast. This time, though, get ready to get innovative. Tune in to hear how social proof can affect fundraising, the effect of a mindset shift that takes donations from an afterthought to the forefront, and practical advice for championing alternative funding in an industry that's slow to adopt innovation. Let's dive in. It is your number one priority to ensure that your business can continue to deliver on its mission, whether it's this year, next year, and beyond.
So we're creating this inclusive environment, building between diverse communities to ensure that our young people can thrive.
I'm always so baffled when I do webinars. There's always somebody at the end who raises their hand and says, I'm the development director. Should I have access to the budget? I'm always like, yes, you've got to know that.
The best thing you can ever do as a nonprofit leader is spend as much money as possible on your story.
Then you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
That is unacceptable, and that is not the way to run a board.
The best thing that we can do is just raise as much money as possible and then give it to the people around the world.
If you're going to be sustainable, you have to have a multi-channel strategy to reach all of these different generations of donors however they want to be reached.
One of the principal values that we carry as an organization is to lift grace over guilt. And we believe that grace is the greatest agent for change that anyone can ever experience.
We all need each other in terms of other nonprofits working together to solve things.
The more nonprofits can give their donor base that experience of the impact that's being made on the ground level, there's nothing else you have to give someone. This is Nonstop Nonprofit. Francesco, so great to have you back on the podcast. How have you been doing?
Nice to see you, Justin. Very good, pretty busy, but very happy to, do this annually if you want, as an annual catch-up, so to say.
Exactly. It's the best way to catch up on all the latest trends and what's happening in the world of creative financing for the world's biggest problems. And so I'm excited to actually dig into that in a few minutes. But before we do that, for those listening, if you could just give a quick background on who you are and the work that you and UNICEF are doing for children around the world.
Yes, I'm Italian of origin, lived outside my country for the last 25, 30 years around the world, working for a number of charities, most recently for UNICEF, in various roles, mostly in fundraising and marketing. So I started to do really the very basics. So myself setting up the face-to-face operation, the telemarketing, I started in the golden day of the direct mail, as many of you are still using it. And then I moved progressively more into the intersection with the innovative finance, where I am now, and to support, the work of UNICEF that is very broad, as you can imagine. And particularly today, how can I say, challenged by a number of things that we all facing. So we're facing, unfortunately, from the Ukraine to Gaza, just to name a few, because we don't forget Sudan, Afghanistan, Yemen, these are also conflicts ongoing that also take all the energy and resources to just respond to the emergency. In the meantime, there are children in all the rest of the world that also need support and help. And so the challenge is how you're going to just respond to this massive crisis that are permanent in nature, and at the same time helping children to go to school in Ecuador, or to just the girls to be protected from violence in Laos. So that's a challenge programmatically, but also financially, as you can imagine, in that environment. There's, high inflation and, increasing prices, et cetera, et cetera. So it's exciting, but it's also worrying and concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it's for a lot of nonprofit leaders, a lot of their missions are singular focused, right? And I guess you could kind of say that about UNICEF in regards to very focused on children, but you're spread across the world, and it's like you attempt to solve one problem, another one pops up. How is it like working in that sort of environment? How do you manage that?
It is. I mean, it's a large organization. It's one of the largest in the world. We are the biggest supplier of certain commodities like vaccine. So billions of dollars of vaccines and other life-saving things that we procure and distribute around the world. So it is, in a sense, comforting, if you want, Justin, because it's such a large presence on the ground, with amazing people. I cannot just even tell you how much pool of colleagues actually are right now in Gaza, risking their lives, for instance. And so that's comforting, right? That's what makes everything relevant. At the same time, it is very much a challenge because, supporting all that from where I'm standing, so getting more money today, it's complicated, right? Because, rightly so, the donors want to see more and more impact, want to see more and more earmark, if you want, right? So, and the same also individual donors, just I'm going to go to this specific thing. But then this restrained organization, because as I said, this doesn't help us to just help every child. That is our mission. So I got an office, I don't know, in, as I said, Chile, or which doesn't have enough money because all the money are, rightly so, in Ukraine or in Gaza. So that's the challenge you're facing, right? How can you just make sure that you raise those type of money and resources that are at the scale, but at the same time with the quality that help, UNICEF to do their work around the world and not just in few countries, so to say.
Absolutely. I was sitting down with a founder and CEO of a nonprofit called News Story recently. And the conversation reminded me of what you're up to at UNICEF in regards to innovative financing. And the organization, it's about a $40 million organization. And they're trying to solve the housing crisis around the world, really. And they took a step back and started calculating, well, what's the cost to solve this problem? And it was like 10 times larger than the annual philanthropic dollars donated to charity. And they're like, this is bigger than philanthropy, right? Like, we're not going to solve the world's problems with just charitable contributions. And so, that reminded me of the conversations we've had in the past. And I'd love to hear since we last spoke, I think it was back in 2022, what you've been up to on the innovative financing side to fund your mission, and how other nonprofits potentially could, learn from that innovation as it relates to financing for the organization's mission.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. In fact, that's what keeps me, in a sense, still smiling or excited when I get off the bed, right? And so, as I said, I'm a true and true direct marketeers and fundraisers. So as I said, I just don't deny where I'm coming from and why this is relevant. So we still need to raise a hell of a lot of money, right? For our causes. But as you said, what is the limit? Because you say, and then I go back to the Dan Pallotta things. How many organizations that cross the $100 million a year? And how many companies you have at the same time that cross that bar? So compare the two, and then you ask yourself, is the Tesla mission or is the Apple mission more important than your mission? Because it's not comparison, right? So the point is, there's no enough money we can raise to just really be able to fulfill our mission with the just fundraising. It's like you try to accelerate sales productions, Tesla production with the sales. It's never going to happen, right? This doesn't work, right? So you need capital. Everything needs capital in this world. Even if you're not capitalistic, you need capital. Martin Luther King needs capital, right? Gandhi needs capital. So the point is, our world is still working in this type of mentality that the money we raise, net of expenses, we spend for program, right? And there's never enough money. So the conversation we had, because we were just launched this bond that, in fact, it's the first ever that finance fundraising in emerging markets. So with the proceeds of the bonds, we are supporting face-to-face, telemarketing, acquisition of individual donor in Thailand, Indonesia, Brazil, etc. And one of the main features of this bond is that the investor accept that if we don't raise that money, they lose the principal. If we do raise, they're also going to get the principal back and the interest. So it's an amazing feature if you think about it, because it means if fundraising is indeed a productive operation, predictable, right, and sustainable, why the market shouldn't finance, right? And also with a double feature that I'm helping, I just put a name, right? Amnesty International, Charity Water, whatever you want to call it. And I get my money back, right? And I just double my impact because my money will triple. And so it's an amazing feature. So how many since we talk, and I spoke with, CEOs of, mid-large size organization, right? In US, which are exactly at the crossroads. Just say, man, we are just reaching the 100 million. We cannot just go behind. You don't have enough, because, with the attrition things, you don't have enough money to invest. And I just say, that's the way. That's the way you have to go to the market. You have to get capital. And and everybody buy into the idea, but nobody else taking the next step. So I just think this is a fundamental, is the challenge of the sector. And doesn't mean you don't have to do fundraising. You still have to raise a hell of the money. It's like you still have to sell a lot of Tesla, right? And sell a lot of Apple. Point is, you need capital to grow. And so that's my first challenge where I'm coming here. And, in our bond, we in fact, it is a 50 million. But in the year 3, we're already on the 350, 400 million revenue because it's our program works. It's your program is acquisition of regular donor with the attrition. That's how it is. It's a scalable, right? That's the where I'm coming from, and I'm still having this conversation with leaders and CFOs that understand them, but nobody has the courage to make the next step. There is a gap in the market. That's true, Justin. Because for the financial sector, this is not too lucrative. There's no money to be making here, right? So why JP Morgan of this world or Goldman Sachs should put something on that? And the charitable, let's see this as a risky. So there is a cultural shift, a market shift that needs to be done. I'm very excited the fact that I've proven that this can be done, and there is plenty of investors out there that would love to just say, how can I support my cause? And with such an amazing things, which, of course I donate, but also I can use my part of my portfolio to support your cause. That would be amazing. Yeah.
So has the pushback, for lack of better words, been just around the return profile? Is it just they're trying to compare apples to oranges to like what they could be making in high growth stock markets? There are a number of resistance. If this sector is how conservative is, if I can say that. I mean, not everyone. No offense to anyone, but it is a very conservative sector, right? It's the way we do things. So the pushback is from different angles. One is the risk element, right? Oh my God, what's gonna happen if we're not able to be paid? Blah blah blah, right? And the question is, okay, but if you have an investor that accept that risk, so you lose nothing. So your only reason is to raise that money. Another way is to just say, oh, are we going to justify to the IRS, our donor, that we have an influx of, $50 million all of a sudden, and then we need to pay back in 5 years? That's becoming like accounting type of question, which is, I don't think is particularly relevant. Yeah. And then, all sort of question is just like the fact that is a mindset, I have to say. And by the way, so there are tools in the market that exist. You can do direct public offerings as a non-for-profit 501c3. You can do a bond. So I think the pushback is very much on, we do these things all our life. Well, we need to change. This is risky. Oh my God, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think too, like there's this like mindset shift that needs to happen, because for so long the nonprofit market has been looked at as almost like an afterthought, right? Oh, I'll give my like 10% after earnings, or I'll give whatever's left after I've lived my life. And so it almost feels kind of like, oh, we're giving to an industry that's not like really like a business industry, or it's not real. It's just like a bunch of like people trying to do good in the world. But I think the mindset shift needs to say, no, this is a market, and it's in a market that's actually okay to drive a return in, because the impact of that return is much more significant, to not just the individual receiving the return, but the individuals on the ground being helped. So we just need this mindset shift that it's okay to make money in the nonprofit market. And that's true of like individuals working at nonprofits. That's true of investors wanting to invest in whether it's social impact causes and bonds, whatever it might be. I think that's the mindset shift we need so that we can open up the doors and actually solve these big, enormous challenges.
Yeah, and if you think it's like having two pockets, right? One pocket you have the spare change, which is normally what exactly like we look at the charitable. Okay, what is the spare change I can donate, right? And the other pocket is much bigger. It's even in our life. Imagine your mortgages, right? Your stocks and shares, your saving, your pension. This part is much larger, right? And all of us, and also our donors, this is so they never think that part can be aligned or supporting your cause, right? You always ask for the other pocket, the spare change. So it changed completely the ball game. And I have to say, Justin, what is really, really interesting for me, it changed the game for the foundations too, and the family office and I that work individual. Now I can go and just say, okay, I still need your gift, right? I still need it.
Yeah.
And okay, but now you can also use your assets. Think about that. So there's a much more money. So there is a limit how much gift a foundation, a family office, a guy can do. But that's hundreds of millions that you invest in various things. Now I'll give you the chance to do part of this to the cause. I mean, we open up a completely, this $1 trillion capital markets that we have no access because of that. You open up a new game, So just to mention an example of something I'm excited I did in the meantime in the last 3 years. One of the biggest thing we have is a polio, right? Polio is nearly eliminated it's one of the second disease we can eliminate from the face of the world. We had the vaccine, right? It's endemic in 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, but we can get there. So we need a lot of money to do that, right? We can raise that, but $8 billion, just good luck how long it's going to take. Or we can just have something else. So what we did is just having $500 million front load by the European Investment Bank. So we get the money right away to finish the work. And then based on the certain KPIs, which is the number of cases of polio, the number of doses of vaccine, if we reach them, the European Commission guarantee will reimburse the bank. If we don't reach them, the Gates Foundation will pay back. So we have 2 donors, this sort of guarantee, but results is we get money right away in large scale. European Investment will never donate that money, right? It's a bank. It's a bank, right? So therefore, yes.
Yeah.
But thanks to this mechanism, we now have putting, how long would it take it to raise this money if we ever going to raise that? So you see, that's the type of thinking that is, and in the meantime, we need still to raise money, but you understand that that's completely different mechanics. Now, for the Gates, what is in for the Gates Foundation? Shouldn't I have given the money right away? Yes, but they leverage double. So their money leverage double money from another, so they get more money into the cause that is polio elimination.
Absolutely. So essentially, I mean, it has like all of the features of like a collateralized loan, a guaranteed loan, making it risk-free for the bank, but backed by, very credible sources. And so it allows you to do the work, allows you to deliver impact immediately, save lives, and the bank still to be able to make its money.
The repayment is based on KPI, so there are data, right? So what measure that is like, did you reduce the number of cases? Have you delivered the number of doses? So that's an interesting thing. And one cool thing that has been applied to this has been the Rhino bond. So substantially similar thing, born on the market, the proceeds go to the conservation in Southern Africa. But then the interest is linked to the number of white rhino that born or died. So therefore, the investor just like take a gamble in a sense to say, okay, I will receive more interest that are more rhino, or that I just completely lose if they are that. And that's also very cool, right? Same type of thing. So, but again, it's a different type of mentality, which is much more money in a different way, putting the risk into this element exactly. So what will happen to us if we're not going to meet this? Nothing.
So that actually begs the next question. We talked about this like external audience, the markets, the donors, but there's this internal audience, the organization, the board, the executives. Yes. How has that journey been for you navigating that at a rather large organization like UNICEF, getting the team on board with alternative financing, creative and innovative financing options that are just very different than, again, normal philanthropic giving and fundraising is very important, but these concepts are newer and we all know that nonprofits, as you've said, can be conservative and can be slow to adopt innovation and change. So how has that journey been for you working inside a large organization with your team?
It's challenging. Of course, we've been in a much different place where we were 2 years ago. We have to just spend a lot of time in updating the board, educating the board. We just did some sort of innovative finance for dummies so that everybody feel comfortable. So definitely, you need to have some champion that is aligned with you. So you need to have the CFO definitely need to buy into this vision. And by the way, the CFO, I talk of the organization like let's say. Large in US, they're coming from this world, so they immediately understand, but they need to buy into this mentality. It's like they come to our world and they change the mentality. So I say, wait a minute, you were doing this stuff. Why now that you are in, let's say, UNICEF, Charity Water, or whatever? Why this is so different for you? Oh, but this is
Yeah.
So definitely you need to have a champion in the CFO, in the legal. Definitely legal is fundamental into that to help you to navigate that. And leadership. So that's something, in fact, that unless our founder, CEO buy into that, is very difficult to drive it through the board. So you need this alignment. You need a lot of time to, because the reaction sometimes is because people don't understand. So they feel caught off guard. They feel a bit stupid. So therefore, you need to overcome and just say, in the end, look, sounds very complicated, but it's very simple. If I draw a diagram, you understand it's not that complicated, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. I was actually talking with a CTO yesterday who is in his first year or second year in the nonprofit space as a CTO, and prior to that spent several decades in the for-profit market. And we were actually talking about what is it like to be a CTO in these two different industries. And he's like, my hope is that I don't lose the mindset that I had when I was working in the for-profit space, because I was driven to innovate. I was driven to solve the impossible problems that we were trying to solve through our technology. And I want to bring that into the nonprofit space. And, to CFOs, the first thing that came to mind is there's a lot of scrutiny around like leverage balance sheets in the nonprofit space, right? And if we had more CFOs understanding that, now this is actually can drive significantly more impact, maybe we can start to change, the conversation internally. To somewhat flip the page, no pun intended, I want to talk a little bit about a couple of your books, Hooked on a Feeling and Emotion Raising. What are the answers or the questions that you're trying to answer through these books? And maybe let's just start there.
Well,
big question.
No, sure. I think a question that everybody asking ourselves every day and try to answer in different way. In a sense, then, emotion raising is like what drive people to really donate in the end, right? Behind the tactics, right? What is the inside motivation that click people to just go there? Mm-hmm. And then I thought that neuroscience, it's millions away ahead of us in terms of understanding better that part. And I thought that's something, again, that our sector should take it more seriously. And I think we may do some element, but we don't really apply. So how many organizations really use the neuroscience techniques and discoveries to just tailor their none. So that part would, but irrespective of that, the question would just like, okay, so from whatever angle we look, neuroscience and behavioral economics, they go all to the same point, right? People are not just do this rationally. So the more you spend time on your logo, on your branding, on your gibberish, on your statistics, nobody cares about that. Nobody will care about who you are, where you found it, the amount. Nobody cares. So you need to get people some emotional connection and value connection to that through stories, through that really visual and sensually connect to people. So that was the main message. And I think in some progress made that. I think too many still are, very much rational in my opinion, or very much formulaic in my opinion. But that was the main thing. And I think there is still some value, just like a few weeks ago, that the Nobel Prize for Economics, Daniel Kahneman died, right? And I think that was been a good moment to celebrate somebody that also changed our mindset, right? In a bit, right? With the same thing, like his main thing is about that system 1, system 2. If you rely too much on one system that you think is what make people decide, you're wrong. Now, how to do is a different story, because of course there is a technique, there is a science and an art in that, right? In the emotions, right? It's not just like the objective is not making people cry. You don't get people to give because you make people cry or you make people upset, right? You need to get that element to get the attention and the click. But then, of course, it needs to match their value. So therefore, we can talk about how simplified the process to donate. But you have to start before, right? What make people really feeling something, right? Instead of talking at them. So that was been the first book. And the second book is being more about, okay, all this is great, but we keep going into the recurring cycle and people get really into you because of the Gaza, because of the thing. And then you never see them again. Why? Because I come to you, so you convince me with your thing. I'm so much connected. I'm so happy now that I donated. And I get nothing from you, or I get another form from you, or I get another newsletter from you. So that disconnect that we all seen. And there are this example about charity and about the Coney 2020, whatever was it, right? The campaign.
Coney 2012.
2012. The organization after the peak closed. Ice bucket challenge, same thing, huge peak, unable to. So we are unable to sustain that thing, and the retention, as you know, that really, right, shows that. So what is this? It's the fact that the experience we do is that poor. So we may be good at create campaign, at create social media that engage people at the first place and making to donate, but we're terrible in delivering a terrible experience after that, right? So that book was just saying, that's where you need to start. So, Steve Jobs says, I don't go to the engineer to tell me another cool technique that I can just launch on the market, right? I have to go back to the customer and say, how can improve your experience? I have to start. And then I go back to the engineer. Same thing here. Instead of thinking a new segment, a new AI generated, and whatever, the basic is go back to your donors and understand how you can improve that experience, right? That's the message.
Yeah.
Now, again, I think there is a general agreement, but how this translates into practical and strategical investment and mind shift, it's questionable.
And now, enjoy this break from your friends at Fundraise, the nonprofit industry's most innovative fundraising platform.
Fundraise provides exceptional, innovative, and friendly fundraising technology focused on nonprofit growth. Made for fundraisers by fundraisers, our state-of-the-art platform integrates every core aspect of front and back-end fundraising management into a convergent platform perfect for nonprofiteers like you. Every day, we celebrate nonprofits like UNHCR and National Wildlife Federation as they trust Fundraise to power fundraising campaigns around the world. Warning, we go through a lot of confetti. Get started raising the funds and the fun at fundraise.org. That's funraise.org.
Now that you've heard how Fundraise can level up your fundraising game, let's get back to the conversation.
I think this statement might get me in trouble with the nonprofit world, which I hope it doesn't. But, I think on that point of going back to the donor, understanding their experience, an underlying problem, and I'm going to say it and then I'm going to expand on what I mean by it, is that there's a lot of entitlement in nonprofit fundraising. And what I mean by that is, well, I'm doing a good thing. I'm helping children. I'm feeding the poor. I'm doing whatever my mission is. So you should just, give a shit and give your money because I'm doing something very noble and you're making a lot of money. And, while I don't disagree with sort of the nobleness of working in the nonprofit space, I think many people have to sacrifice, to work in this industry. I think that if we go back, like you said, and really develop these journeys for these individuals, these donors, and we actually start solving this massive retention problem we see in the nonprofit industry, we'll actually see exponential growth and we will be able to fund more work. And so it's, the whole point that I'm trying to say here is totally agree that it's not about, a donor shouldn't just come back and give because you're doing a good thing. They need to believe that their continual gift will continue to do a good thing. And the only way to make that happen is to have that relationship and to help the donor through that journey and that experience. Otherwise, they're going to find another great cause that hits, that gives them an endorphin burst and move their money to the next cause next door.
Yeah. And if it's all transactional in the sense, and this mentality, you need to get your second gift as soon as possible. This will drive your attention. So it's all about driven by the ask, and you have to ask multiple times, and you got all this data to prove. I think it just very, very short-sighted again. Just the change and just go. I just need to go back and understand what do you think about it. Are you judge? Are you value? Spending that, which I understand is less fancy than AI, and I understand is less fancy than another segmentation, whatever. That's where it will start. Because if you don't start from, how are you going to say? How many really not-for-profit can say genuinely that they know what the donor experience? All right, they can give data, but they don't really expand that. So I still think this is a major shift. And as you said, this then going to drive to more money. Yes, it does in the long term, right? But you have to make this jump. So one of the things that UNICEF has done in across Latin American markets is to start to really regularly to ask people about their satisfaction on the experience that they just completed and in the commitment to the organization. It sounds simple, but if you do start to do regularly, you get massive data. And through the massive data, you can see that those that are higher committed and higher satisfied, they have a much larger lifetime value. So if you start bothering, just do a simple thing like that, you just put in these people in a different bucket. So this is where you can check. Then there are people that are committed, so they believe in you, but they are unsatisfied. What happened in there? So then this is a different bucket. Look at it. What we did wrong is something we failed them. Is something we communicate, but you see that method change your approach. I don't need to just send the second appeal, the second gift, the second ask. I just need to understand them better. And this is based on experience, and this is based on the commitment to your organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another concept I wanted to hit on from Hooked on a Feeling was a concept that has played out personally for me, but had nothing to do with charity, but I think it's very relevant to the concept in your book and to fundraising in general. I'm have been a lifelong Nike fan. I love Nike, right? And I love it because, they have cool products, they have great shoes, but their messaging isn't about how awesome their shoes are, right? Their messaging is you can be an athlete, right? You can be an Olympian, you can be so-and-so, right? And so they get you talking about like the neurons in your brain triggering off saying, I can be an athlete, I can up my game, whatever it might be. Recently, I've gotten into pickleball, and Nike, hasn't done a lot of marketing in the pickleball arena, right? And so I've just been wearing like the most comfortable court shoes, tennis shoes, that Nike has produced. And then along comes Skechers, a brand that I thought was dead. And, I was like, I can't stand it. They're so ugly. There's nothing cool this company has ever produced. But they basically latched on to like one of the most popular and famous pickleball players today and built up a whole brand around him, and then went further into just talking about how it's going to up your game and so forth. So I went and tried them on. I was like, holy shit, these things are amazing, right? And so I switched to Skechers, not because like the marketing was, telling me that the shoe was better, but it's because I saw social proof. I saw that actually this brand was being adopted in an arena that I cared about. And so I was like, maybe I should consider this. And I think, there is a very similar concept here when it comes to fundraising, and the science behind fundraising is when we see social proof, when we see our peers engaging in important causes, that's a huge factor in what might lead me to make a contribution and so forth. And so that was a thought that came into mind. And as I was trying to relate back to some of the concepts in Hooked on a Feeling, that I think a lot of nonprofits, could obviously borrow in the way that they interact and connect with their donors.
No, 100%. And, Nike it's really built the essence, exactly what you say, not on the sneakers, but on the identity. And, that's that campaign Crazy with Kaepernick, right? Which, and if you on the surface, you say, lots of people really hate it. They start burning the shoes, but then you analyze, who reacted that badly? Definitely not the target audience, right? Or Nike. These are not the teenagers that they actually love it, and they actually they're spending even more if you look at the data. So that one, it just says somebody that knows intimately their audience. And that means sometimes you're annoying somebody else, which is what the charity don't do. So we try to go to everyone and the dog and just say, my cause is good for you, instead of just saying, who is my target audience, right? So, for instance, for UNICEF, it's clearly very much, it's parents, it's an identity that counts, because we're talking about children, right? So, and why do I need to convince necessarily, right, the Gen Z and Gen U? And possibly I have some segment will be, but definitely, my identity is very much closer to be a parent, right? Because I have a child. Right, and that's resonating more.
Yep.
So get more parents to like you said, and the social proof is helping a lot to get other parents into the game, right? And so I think this is where we are also a big failure. So we try to convince everyone and believe that I just spread 100 and just see what it sticks to the wall, right? And how this is a good use of money and good marketing, right? And Justin, I have to be honest, 99% of the nonprofit just acting this way. Same for face-to-face. I annoying 200 people on the streets and I get 2. Good result. But you have annoyed 100 people, and then what will be the results of that? Because that's another part. The experience is like Kahneman is never, the experience is made of the beginning, the peak, and the end. The end will stick to the memory and will drive your behavior. So when you are annoyed somebody, definitely not going to come back. It will influence other people. So that element also we not measure it, we don't consider, right? So the annoyance that we create is like irrelevant because I had 1% response, or I'm not because I have 2 donors on the street. Well, wait a minute, because you discharge all the rest that you created because you are unable to just be more exactly close to your people that believe in you, more relevant, etc. So that's another element that really it's really short-sighted, and we can say whatever we want, but social media, it's flooded by the same type of appeal, meaning everybody trying to just sell the same to everyone.
Yeah. Well, I know that you're doing important things. You're in a suit, meeting with important people. So I don't want to take too much more of your time here. But one last question for you before we let you go.
But one other thing I want to just mention, because maybe in a year time we're going to talk about it, but it's something I'm excited about. It's a few things I'm excited, but while I'm here, one of the things I'm here is because we try to find a new way to deal with the debt burden, particular certain country, right? In certain country, pay so much in debt and interest that there's no money left for children in terms of education or so. And this, everybody just, So we need to crack it down, right? Normally, this is something that is done at the government level, right? You have to convince the government to forgive the debt, all the. But I think that there is a solution in which we can bring the market, so investors and the donors together, to find a solution that will reduce the debt and the interest. That part will be then invested conditionally into the children. And so that's something I'm excited, because I think there are problems of this world that for too long we think is for government to resolve or for big institutions, while markets and donors together can find solution to deal with it. And for me, this is where the donors of today will be more excited than have another appeal to just say, give it to this, give it to that. Now, can we use your assets and resources to make sure that therefore we reduce the debt, and this one will make more good? That's, for me, is exciting. Sorry if I just jumped in you and just...
No, that's good. And just so that our listeners have the context, can you share where you're at when you said I'm here? What's your...
I'm in DC. There is a spring meeting of the World Bank and the IMF, and I'm here to meeting with donors. So I want networks, individual foundations, and others to deal with this issue. And the other issues I'm dealing is very excited is how we can use insurance, so parametric insurance and cat bond, to respond to disasters. So when a typhoons and earthquake, a flooding, instead of we have to go and raise the money after the disaster, I can activate the money so in 24 hours, these money are where they're needed. And who is going to pay for the premium? The donors. Now, why the premium pay for the donors? The donors pay for the premium because you're going to get much better back for your deal. So instead of giving the money after the disaster, you give me 100 million covers that I can activate. And you get the money right away. So again, this is another interesting I'm here to discuss, and I'm very excited about it.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you jumped in. It's actually a good segue to the last question. Actually, it sets that question up nicely here, and it's for those listening who are trying to think how to be more innovative in financing their nonprofit and funding their mission. Where should they start? Any practical advice that you can share in terms of where to start?
That's a hard question. I really don't know, because I think that I think that this is a relative. I mean, the financial part is nothing new, Justin. Let's be clear here. It's something that has been there forever. Bond or insurance has been there. Nothing new. It's the use you do for your cause, right? Is the way you're going to use it and interact. So there's nothing new in the specific technically. Some basic financial, but I would just say. And I said to also internally to people, just say, where you start, you just say, what is your big issue you want to solve, right? What is from your mission programmatic thing that you cannot solve with the current donations, right? So start there and then say, okay, there is another way I could solve that. I need money up front. I need a different mechanism. That's where you can start thinking innovative finance or alternative finance, right? Because if you can solve with more donation, I just say raise more money. That's not the right point. But if you say I need faster or need different, or I cannot just do with just donation alone, that's a good place to start. And the way I look at it is also, for me, this area is capital campaign 3.0 or 4.0. What used to be a capital campaign, if you think about it, right? But it's shifting to a financial. So instead of taking like 5 years to go to the capital, here, you're going to go with a different, but the idea is the same.
Yes, that makes total sense. I think that's actually a really great prompt. If you're wondering whether or not non-philanthropic gifts is for your mission, start with how big is the problem? How much funding do we need? If we can't solve it with philanthropic markets, what other markets can we solve this problem in, and go from there? And that might lead to, if the answer is we need to go to other markets, that's going to lead to we need some new talent on the team that has this expertise in those markets. And so I think that was incredibly insightful. So thank you for
and one thing,
sharing
Justin,
that.
Many organizations in their board members are people that in their life, they do exactly that, with personally or professionally. So they do exactly that. So it's time for them to just say, help us to solve this issue with your capacity, right? So you do investment all the time. Why it shouldn't apply to us? We need to solve urgent issues.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to catch up. I could spend another hour just talking with you about the innovation that you're at the forefront of and the incredible work that you and UNICEF is doing. So thank you for giving us 45 minutes of your time today to share with us and our listeners. We really appreciate it.
Hopefully, it's not going to be every year, but I'm shorter, maybe, to share some of these things. Happy to do that. It's a pleasure.
We'll need to get an update. We'll have to check in midway and see how things are going. And good luck out there.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Nonstop Nonprofit. This podcast is brought to you by your friends at Fundraise, nonprofit fundraising software built by nonprofit people. If you'd like to continue the conversation, find me on LinkedIn or text me at 562-242-8160. And don't forget to get your next episode the second it hits the internets. Go to nonstopnonprofitpodcast.com and sign up for email notifications today. See you next time.